All right, welcome everyone. My name is Irvin Zabaleta. I use he, him, his, él pronouns. And on behalf of North Carolina Campus Compact, we welcome you to CEAC 2020. It's so great to see all of you. We ask that if you are able to turn on your cameras and do mute yourself unless you want to ask a question. And also, if you can rename yourself so you can include your organization or your institution after your name, so we know where you are joining us from. So if you can see, I am Irvin Zabaleta, and then dash NC Campus Compact for my name. So we are very, very happy that we have Dena Shonts. She's the Associate Dean of Student Engagement, and Jesse Bennett, the Director of Service Learning from Central Piedmont Community College. This session is building the infrastructure for community college service learning, lessons learned from the CPCC journey. We ask that you use the chat option throughout the webinar for your comments, questions. I will be monitoring that. Also, you can also use the Q&A section and ask your questions that way. I'll be monitoring both platforms. Again, I don't want to take any more of your time. We're starting a little later, but it's the morning, Tuesday morning during quarantine. Once again, welcome, and we hope that you stay throughout the day as we continue the CEAC journey. All right, so I'll turn it over to Jesse and Dena.
Thank you. Again, my name is Dena Shonts, and Jesse Bennett and I want to really kind of take you through the CPCC journey. We want to talk to you guys about how service learning got started at Central Piedmont, the things that we've done to build the program, maybe talk to you a little bit about the things that worked really well and the things that didn't work really well. And then we want to talk a little bit about where we plan to go from here. Okay, so we actually started the service learning program in the spring of 2003. And ironically enough, Campus Compact was the driving force behind service learning starting at Central Piedmont. John Barnhill, who started North Carolina Campus Compact, actually sent a letter to Central Piedmont to our president at the time, Tony Zeiss. He read the letter, he forwarded it to our Vice President of Enrollment and Student Services and said, "What is this?" She then forwarded it to my dean, who's Mark Helms, and said, "What is this?" He was so excited about the prospect of service learning. He was telling me this story a couple days ago, that he said he canceled everything on his calendar for the rest of the day, researched service learning practices, researched North Carolina Campus Compact, wrote a one-page letter and said, "This is why we need to start service learning at the college, and this is how much money we need to start it." Really, all the funding he asked for in the very beginning was to hire one full-time coordinator to start the program. The college agreed, and service learning was started. So the very first thing we did is we joined Campus Compact. They were a tremendous resource for us. We begged, borrowed, and stealed from all of our colleagues. We did not feel that there was any sense or need to recreate that wheel. So we really relied heavily on Campus Compact and the members that were part of the Compact to get as much information as we could to get our program started. So when we first started service learning, as I said, there was one full-time coordinator. His name was Dan Heron at that time, and he was there for the first semester that service learning started. And then I was actually hired as a part-time coordinator that was split between service learning and student life. So I came on after that first semester and worked with Dan to help grow that program. During that first year, we did a couple things that we felt were pretty monumental. The first thing that we did, actually within a couple months of even starting the program, is we worked with John Barnhill and North Carolina Campus Compact to host a regional conference. And we worked with a keynote speaker, Bob Franco. I don't know if you all are familiar with Bob Franco. At that time, he was really the guru of service learning with community colleges, and he was based in Hawaii. So we brought him in, and he led that conference, and I learned so much that day. And honestly, that was my first really big experience with learning about service learning. Later that year, we did an alternative spring break trip to Atlanta, Georgia. We actually learned about alternative spring break trips from our friends that are at App State. And so they gave us all of the information about alternative spring break trips and how they work. And we thought, that's really, really cool. Let's take students somewhere fairly close, since this is our first time, and do some service with them over spring break. And that worked really well. When we first started, we had 10 faculty members on board, and we were offered in about 20 different sections. Again, we were really kind of feeling our way through it. Nothing was required. I don't even know if faculty fully understood what the difference between service learning and volunteerism was that first or second semester, but we were celebrating all of our accomplishments regardless. And we also hosted our first annual awards luncheon for students and faculty. I wanted to point out to you all that everything that's in orange is ongoing. So these are programs that have continued every single year. Those things that are mentioned in white are one-shot deals. So in 2004 and in 2005, my position became full-time. So I was really impressed with the college's ability to put some money behind those positions. They saw that students were getting engaged. They saw that students were doing service. And although we didn't have a dedicated office or a dedicated center at that time, the fact that they put money behind 2 full-time positions really solidified the institutional commitment to offer service learning. We really reached out that first year again to our colleagues at North Carolina Campus Compact and the other members. We went to App State quite a bit. Jenny Kane was our main contact at that point, and she was instrumental in really guiding us through what works, what doesn't, what does a true service learning program look like versus volunteerism. And although they are a university, they were really helpful with adapting their model to fit the community college needs. Because if you work at a community college, you know that we are different than a 4-year institution. Our students are commuter, so keeping them engaged can be a little bit more difficult, but I'm very grateful to App State for all of their help in getting us going. App State actually talked to us all about the Martin Luther King Day Challenge, and so we learned about it. Jenny Kane had created a guide at that time, and so I took her guide and really tried to think, okay, well, how would this work here on the community college level? And so we just went for it. We implemented our very first MLK Challenge that January in 2005, and it was fantastic. We had 50 students show up. We were super excited. It was a fantastic day. While the college was seeing the value that we were bringing to students by offering them service work, they actually pulled us aside and said, hey, we have this community service in America Reads Federal Work Study program. Typically at that time, community service work study students were placed in the Academic Learning Center or in the library. And for those of you that don't know, federal work study dollars, 7% have to be spent on America Reads and community service programs, 7%. So I'm not sure who manages that at your institution, but that is definitely something to look into. I'm very proud to say that Central Piedmont always went above and beyond, and they typically allocate about 25% of federal work-study dollars to go towards the America Reads and Community Service Work-Study program. So we decided that, I'm sorry, Jesse, we decided that instead of, oh, okay. I'm so sorry. My daughter is graduating and I just got the hand signal that she's up. So I'm going to step out and let Jessie take over.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jessie Bennett. I'm the Director of Service Learning. I just stepped into this role last August, and I've been at Central Piedmont since 2015. So I knew a lot about service learning because I came from the student life department, and student life and service learning both fall under our division of student life and student affairs. So we report to the same dean. One thing that I do want to point out is we're a multi-campus institution. So Central Piedmont has 6 campuses. We have our central campus, which is in Uptown Charlotte. If you've ever been to our campus or visited Central Piedmont, you might have come to that campus, but there are 5 other campuses spread out around Charlotte. One in the Matthews area, one in the Huntersville area, one in the west side of Charlotte, and one in the southeast side of Charlotte. So we are spread out pretty far. And, just based on, I was looking at the other community colleges. Tara, is Wayne a multi-campus institution?
Oh, no.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Okay. I was just curious because when you guys are listening to this, I want you to think about, we didn't start off when we get to where we are now. We didn't start off with 6 people on our team. We didn't start off with all these programs or all these community partners or 100+ faculty that are incorporating service into their classrooms. So I don't want you to think that that's kind of how we came around. And at the end, I do want to hear, from each of you kind of where you are, so we can all learn and grow from each other's experiences too. We did host in this period, we hosted our first Vista volunteer, which was obviously something that came through because of our membership in Campus Compact. Amy Brunton was our first Vista volunteer, which, Dena didn't go into her history, but Dena was actually a student at Central Piedmont. And now, as you can see, she's the associate dean of our area. Our first Vista volunteer, she actually worked in our office for a couple of years. She went to a nonprofit, so she left Central Piedmont and became a director. And now she's back. She works in our foundation. So I just say that to say, when you think about these experiences and these opportunities that Campus Compact sends out to us, a lot of times these open up doors for our students, that they might be at our institution for a little bit, they go somewhere else, and then they might come back, which I think is great. So 2005 through 2006, Service Learning had their first open house, and that's because for the first time, even after 3 years, we had our own dedicated space. So we opened what we called the center. We don't really refer to the office as the center anymore, but Service Learning held an open house to invite faculty, students, other staff to our space to see what resources and opportunities that we could provide to our community. We held our first annual speed networking breakfast. And what that is we invite community partners to the table, and we invite students to the table. And if you've ever seen like speed dating, you basically have a row of tables on one side, and there's chairs set up on either side. And so I might be sitting here talking to someone and we might have, 2 to 5 minutes. And then they're going to say rotate, and then one row shifts seats. So you give the student the opportunity to talk to each community partner about the opportunities that they have at their agency. Our students love it. We also, I'll talk about this later, we also have a volunteer fair where we invite community partners, but I like this because it's devoted time that I don't want to say that it's forced, but each person automatically gets that interaction with each other. And so the student talks to every community partner, and the community partner gets to talk to every student. We also had our first annual Service Learning Faculty Institute. This is where we share our resources with our faculty. I think this has slowly evolved over time, where now we have, through human resources, there is a center. So when new faculty are hired, we go in and we do orientations with new faculty to talk about incorporating service learning into their classes. I could say if you can bring a student with you, that is so valuable, because I can stand up there and say, oh, it's this easy, and I'm going to give you the resources to help you make your course a service learning course. But when they hear that student experience, when they hear about other doors that have opened up for them, or things that they've done out in our community that connect to the learning outcomes of their classes, it definitely takes it to that next level. We should have kept the next one highlighted. I'm sorry, but we then hired a full-time administrative assistant for our department. We still have a full-time administrative assistant. Our former Vista, Amy, she was hired as a part-time coordinator. We did a lot during the early 2000s. Again, I wasn't here to see this, but during this period, we did a lot at the community college of people split time. I think I heard, I'm not sure if I wrote down names correctly. Someone mentioned that they split time in 2 different areas. Is that you, Tara?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have done a lot of that throughout the years, where people were part-time service learning coordinators and part-time career counselors, or part-time student life coordinators and part-time service learning coordinators, because that's the only way that we had, whether it be funding for salary, that we could do it, that we just didn't have maybe the numbers yet that the institution wanted us to have, to prove that we needed a full-time person just devoted to that one position. So it is okay. I say that to say that, we've been there and we've done that, where people are splitting time into totally separate worlds. And then we started implementing service in action. So what service in action is for us is, my coordinators on my team, they set up service in action with our community agencies. And we typically do 1 service in action per week. So we have 16 weeks in our semester. And what those are is they are service opportunities with our vetted community partners that students can sign up for. So if a student has a service learning requirement in their class, when we go into their classroom and do an orientation, we talk about service in action. So if your professor is requiring that you do 15 hours in that semester, we tell them the easiest way to sign up for service is through service in action. And what those are is there are programs that are already set up on our website. If you go to our website, you can see, like, okay, on this first week, we're going to the Carolina Raptor Center. So maybe that biology student can connect the dots with the service that they're doing with what they're supposed to learn in their class. And they just sign up for that service in action project. And then that way, for the student, it's easier. However, those service and action projects are very limited in space. So the Humane Society might only take 10 students. When we do our MLK challenge, which is a service in action, we can take 100. But I say that to say that, you know, when we're sharing information with our students about how they're going to get their hours for true service learning that's required in their classes, this is the easiest way. But we all know students. And so if a student doesn't sign up for a service in action, we have all of our community partners listed on our website with contact information so that the student can reach out directly to the agency. And talk about and reach out to them to see what upcoming events they have. But these service and action events are devoted just to Central Piedmont students for them to sign up and volunteer with.
Just do you mind if I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just say that, you know, when the thought behind service in action, in addition to having these one-shot service projects, we wanted our students to be able to really do some career exploration. So this was also tied to, at that time, our president was, we are the leader in workforce development, and that was his prime motivation. And so one of the things that we wanted to do to show him how service can impact a student in multiple areas is that we thought if we created this, we called it a buffet of service, right? So students could pick and choose different opportunities, and we tried to tie that to what they might want to do in their careers. So we really encourage them, if you want to work with animals, go to this event at the Humane Society and see if that's something that you're passionate about. That was really kind of the entree, and then we would encourage students to continue doing their service there if they did in fact have a great experience and that's where they wanted to stay. Do you want me to keep going, Jess?
Yeah,
Okay.
Are you back? Did you get to see her?
I did. I'm sorry, you guys. It
No.
was really sweet. Moving on to middle school, so big deal. We also implemented NCACs, and for those of you that have been with Campus Compact for a long time, you might remember NCACs, but NCACs was a program through North Carolina Campus Compact where students could receive a $1,000 Ed Award for 300 hours of service. And so that was a fantastic program, and I think we had that for 3 or 4 years before it was no longer funded. Between 2006 and 2009, you know, in addition to service learning in the classroom, we really wanted to focus on how can we start diving into some civic engagement and community engagement opportunities for our students. We actually attended a poverty simulation that was put on by the United Way. At that time, there was no charge, so we asked the United Way to come to the college and do a poverty simulation for our faculty, staff, and students. When we asked them to come back and do it a second time, they told us they were charging $500. So if you don't know, CPCC has 6 campuses, and we really try hard. If we're going to do something at one, we're going to do it at all. So when we did the math, we thought we can't afford that. But then we learned about the Missouri Community Action program that actually developed the poverty simulation and had kits that you could purchase. So we went to Missouri, we completed a poverty simulation training, and we bought a kit. And since that time, poverty simulations have become a regular part of our offering. In fact, our early childhood students, they have a standard poverty simulation that we do for them every semester. And that's because many of our early childhood students will end up working in daycares. And sometimes the individuals in those daycares might be from minoritized populations, more low income. And so the goal is to have a better understanding of what those individuals are going through so that you can relate and you can be more empathetic. And we really wanted to expose our students to things that are outside of their normal way of thinking. We also decided we needed to start having volunteer fairs. we really wanted to expose our students to the different nonprofits in the Mecklenburg County area. I had heard a staggering number that there was over 10,000 501c3s. Now, those could be operated out of someone's house, but that's a large number of nonprofits in Mecklenburg County. And so with that in mind, we started reaching out to more of our community agencies, inviting them on campus so that they could get to know our students, and our students could actually put a face with the name and see where their passions might lie, or to see what might be a good fit for their program of study. At that time, my position was elevated to a director position, which again just shows that the institution really was understanding what we were doing, and they were seeing the value in what we were doing. We also decided at that time, let's host another regional workshop on civic engagement in the college community. That was a good opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about civic engagement, hear from our colleagues, and bring in some folks that could share best practices. Also at that time, we learned about an organization called MAVA, and I'm sure there is one in every community, but this is the Metrolina Association of Volunteer Administrators. So this is a group of volunteer coordinators at nonprofits who come together once a month. They share best practices. They talk about how they utilize volunteers, the needs of their agency. And our thought process was, if we join this group, we'll have a better understanding of what our community partners might need and how we can best support them. One of the things I learned from Campus Compact right off the bat is you don't come in and assume that you can just fix your community partner, you can take care of their needs, and that you know what they want. You really have to listen and ask them what they need. And so MAVA was a great way for us to do that and really get to know those individuals and what their needs are for their organizations. Between 2009 and 2013, we were keeping up with all of the programs we had previously mentioned, but also decided to add some. So we started offering blood drives at each of our campuses once a semester, just something that we could do to serve the community. We also decided at that time that our community partners do so much for our students. They really do. I mean, if you think about the time that a community partner spends training a student, orienting them to the job that they'll be doing, spending time with them to make it a true service learning experience, they really are putting in a lot of effort. And so we thought, how can we make this relationship truly reciprocal? How can we give back to our community partners? And so we decided to implement what we called community partner workshops. So we asked community partners, what kind of things do you want training or education on? And so we heard things like, how do you use social media to increase your volunteer base? How do you effectively write a grant? How do you build a better team? And so we called on the expertise from individuals within our college. For example, we had our grants department come and do a how to write a grant 101, and that was so well received. And so that has been a standard practice that once a month we offer a community partner workshop based on the feedback that we get from our community partners on the things that they would like to see. And we provide breakfast or lunch depending on the time of day. And that's just a way for us to give back to our community partners, again, knowing how much of their time and energy they give to our students. At that time, we were also able to have service learning transcripts, which that was an act of Congress. Forever, I wanted service learning to show up on a student's formal transcript, kind of the way Phi Theta Kappa does in different types of honor societies. Constantly vetoed by administration, was very, very frustrated. And then we got permission to create our own. Now, we have a really big institution, and I think at our institution we might have 11 or 12 deans, but what we tell our students is we keep track of all of their service hours, where they went, how much time they were at that particular organization, the dates they went, and what class they did it for. And we put it into a really great transcript format that we tell them that the dean signs. And they love that, because I don't think they realize we have 11 deans, but it sounds really fantastic when we're saying, and the dean signs this. And they love it. It means so much to them, because that's something that they could either put in an e-portfolio. We've had students come and ask for it at different points in times if they wanted to attach it to a job application, or even to an application when they transfer to a four-year university. The Project Life Bone Marrow Drive was another huge event that we decided to take on, that we do annually. And that's where we're actually swabbing individuals to see if they are a potential match to save a life. So our vice president of the foundation, his son had leukemia, and he brought Project Life to us and said, do you think that there's any service opportunities around this? And of course we said yes, and we jumped on that. So we partnered with our cytotechnology students. I would probably not give you an accurate description of cytotechnology, but I believe they look for cancerous cells. Jesse, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're looking, they look for cancerous cells, but they're also looking at cells under a microscope for various different reasons as well.
So they actually incorporated Project Life into their syllabus. This is one of our wonderful, true examples of service learning. And it's become a part of their curriculum. Every year, their students are in charge of the Project Life Bone Marrow Drives. They work closely with our department, and we support them in the best way that we can. But every year, we try to increase the number of swabs that we get. And those students are so incredibly proud of this project and what they're able to do. We're a majority institution. And one of the things that Project Life expressed to us is that they don't have a high number of minority donors. So they're really trying to make sure that their African American population that needs bone marrow gets their bone marrow so that they can save their life. And so we are trying to educate students and get students to swab, and it's been super successful every year. It's something that we're really proud of. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
About that one too.
Yeah.
And those students also, they pop into classrooms and do presentations. And so they're also educating other students on our campus that, you know, many people don't know, but African Americans suffer from sickle cell disease higher than non-African Americans. And so there's a reason why we want to raise the amount of African Americans on the bone marrow registry, because that community is suffering and not getting the donors that they need. And then also one thing that's great about using those students is they also have a club. And so they then request funds from SGA to support this initiative, and it just kind of brings it full circle around the institution that other students are learning about Project Life. The SGA students are the students that they're going in the classrooms and giving these presentations to. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that, Dena.
No,
sorry.
No, of course. We also at that time started doing a lot of service around the college. We had a lot of departments that started seeing the value in service and just in service, and they wanted to start using that as team building opportunities. And of course, everybody wants to do service around Christmas. And we ended up kind of becoming that go-to department to plan and design service projects. And we're okay with that. But what we try to do is always have a reflection component behind it, because I think the service is important, but it's also important to understand why the service is needed and why is that community partner doing what they do and why is it important and why is it valuable and who are they serving. And to have that context can really make all the difference, and it can make just doing departmental service projects not so horrible. We were super excited in 2013 or 14 that we were able to host CSNAP, and we'd love to be able to host that again in the future. But that was really, really fun for us. We had over 30 students from Central Piedmont that were able to attend. They had a fantastic time. We were excited to do that. Between 2013 and 2015, we were also able to take our first international ASB trip. You know, the regional ASB trips, we call them regional now because we try to stay semi-close to North Carolina just for driving purposes. But the regional ASB trips were something that was ongoing, but we had heard about all of these other schools being able to do these international trips, and we just didn't think we could afford it. And then we said, you know, let's just do away with some other things that we might be funding and let's put some money towards this. And so we scholarshiped 10 students. We gave them each $1,000 to offset their cost. And then they fundraised and raised the other $1,000 themselves. And it was fantastic and it was life-changing. Many of our students have never even left North Carolina. And so for them to travel to Peru and see other cultures and be able to serve them, I mean, it was just an extraordinary experience. During that time, Central Piedmont turned 50, and I thought it was really cool because the president said, you know, I want our 50th anniversary to focus on service. And so we worked with the college to plan multiple service events, to create kind of like a listserv of agencies where our faculty and staff could go, and then of course track their hours and celebrated everybody at the end. Again, institution showing that service is now kind of being weaved through the fabric of the institution. We also created a civic engagement film series. So I had actually missed doing programs. I used to program when I was a coordinator, and planning programs is something that I think is really fun. And I wanted to do something, and I thought, what if we started showing some films on civic engagement and really having some in-depth conversations about what's going on in these films afterwards and really interacting with our students. The film series was really well received. Students really liked attending those. And that was a fantastic, fantastic thing that we did. We also started Rotaract. I don't know if you remember, but on a previous slide, we had a service club, and that was started by one of our former Vistas, Cassie Moore. And then we evolved into having a Rotaract club. Rotaract is the collegiate version of Rotary. Our president and many of our vice presidents were members of Rotary, and I was a little opposed to it at first. I thought it was honestly just an organization of old white men, and it was just kind of their thing, and that's not our students. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, you know, this is a great opportunity for our students to network, for those individuals in the community that are in upper administration positions at different organizations, to create those networks, to create those relationships, and an opportunity for our students to even potentially get internships or jobs down the road. Our students really enjoy being part of Rotaract. They enjoy having that service focus, and they do enjoy networking. I will tell you, you know, lessons learned on that. It hasn't always been easy. We have a lot of international students that participate in service opportunities at the college because sometimes they're limited on things that they can get engaged in. So I will tell you this little story. So we went to a Rotary meeting so that the students could network. And so they're dispersed throughout the room, and each student is sitting with a different table. And at the beginning of the Rotary meetings, they say the Pledge of Allegiance. And so the student was from the Congo, and she didn't know what to do. And so she didn't stand. She sat at the table, which was completely fine. And I wish I would have been at the table with her when this happened, but I wasn't. And one of the gentlemen in the Rotary Club got really upset with her because she didn't stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I was so furious, and I thought, that's it, we're never going back. But then I thought, they need to be educated on who our students are and why she didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. It has nothing to do with the flag or being against our country, but she's from a different country and she didn't understand what was happening. And so I ended up taking that as, this is a time where we really need to educate the community on who our students are, because we are a community college and we are an integral part of this community, and you would need to understand the students that we serve. So you can only imagine there were long conversations that went on with some of the individuals in the Rotary Club, and that has not happened again. We were also able during that time to hire 2 new full-time coordinators, which we were really excited because at this point we were based at our central campus, but of course we served every campus that we had, but there was never that presence that was always on that campus. And so having these 2 new full-time coordinators allowed us to split them between 2 campuses. So essentially, now we had 5 campuses covered, 4 of those with a part-time person. We also wanted to start increasing our faculty training. So we developed a Service Learning 101 in a virtual format that we thought could reach more faculty. Unfortunately, it just wasn't as successful as we thought it would be. We were super excited about it. We're like, this is so awesome. We had an intern create it. They just didn't take to it. I don't know why. I don't know if it was advertising. I do think that a lot of them wanted something that was in a seated format so that they could ask questions and be in front of someone and be with their colleagues to have that engagement, which we all know what that's like right now in this virtual environment. Okay. In 2015 and 2016, we really started offering more civic engagement events. And I will just say, this was the time that I moved into my current role and we hired a new director. At that time, the director's name was Jen Martz. And this is really exciting because I think sometimes when you run a program, you don't realize it, but you get stuck doing the things that you've always done. And you think you're branching out, and we've shown you a lot of things that we've branched out on, but to really start building that infrastructure and to really start offering community and civic engagement on a deeper level, more programs had to be offered. So I was really excited that Jen was able to come in and bring a different twist to some of the things that we were currently doing and then add on to what we weren't doing. So the program grew by offering Oxfams. Jesse, do you want to give an overview of what Oxfam is for those that don't know?
So an Oxfam banquet, what we typically do is we go into a classroom. We do a lot of that at Central Piedmont because you have a dedicated audience. I think a lot of us who are programming know that if you just start marketing a program and like something like this, you may not know how many students you're going to get. And when you're trying to show the impact of poverty and food insecurity and different socioeconomic statuses, if you only get 5 students to show up, it's not as fruitful as when you have a whole class who a faculty member has committed to using their class period for this Oxfam banquet. You have a dedicated, you're going to have 30 students in the audience. So what that is students, they know that they're going to have a lunch and that we're going to talk about some of those things, but they don't know is when they show up, they get a card. And the card has an identity to it, and it gives them information about a person, what their job might be, what their education level might be, what their level of food insecurity might be, and they're kind of divided up into 3 kind of tiers, so low, middle, and high. And the food differs for low, middle, or high. The way that are presented your food is presented very different. So the group that might be considered low socioeconomic status, they may get some bread and they might get some water, but they're given no utensils. They're given not given a table or chairs. And it really gets the students thinking about these things. One of the best things that I've seen is, so the higher group typically has a nicer lunch. Maybe they have a plate of pasta or with utensils, and they're sitting at a table of chairs, and they have a juice drink or a soda drink, or they have more options to choose from. I've actually seen groups from, and we don't tell them what they can and can't do, but the students that are given more, they want to share with the students that don't have as much. And so there's a discussion that's led, and there's a script. Oxfam, their website gives you all the resources you need to perform one of these banquets on your campus, down to the questions. We like to partner with psychology, sociology, and history classes for this program, because the content is relative to the learning outcomes of those specific courses. But really, you could do this anywhere. You know, if you have clubs or organizations that you work with regularly that have a meeting time, this would also be something that you could do the Oxfam banquet for that. But we've seen the most success when we do it right in a class during a class period.
Thank you. We were also able to hire that year another part-time person who was able to staff our final campuses, our campus. So now we had service learning coordinators on every single campus. It wasn't in a full-time capacity, but that was okay. At least there was a presence there on a part-time basis. We also took another international ASB trip to Costa Rica. Fantastic trip. Students had a really, really great time. We learned quickly that it's best to partner with our Global Learning Office. They are the professionals for international travel, and they made everything so easy. So from here on out, any ASB trips that we do on an international level, it's through a partnership with our Global Learning Office.
Your campus might call it study abroad. Our campus just calls it global learning, and your campus might call it even something different. Just because I don't know if that necessarily translates to if global learning translates to everybody else's campuses.
Thank you. I didn't even think of that. We also started doing Toys for Tots. So that's an annual thing that we started doing. Again, our staff just became really passionate about giving back to the community and enjoying service themselves as much as our students do. We also started implementing an early childhood night of service, and this did not come from anyone on our team. It actually came from our early childhood instructors who really value service. They wrote service learning into almost every single one of their courses, as did nursing, which is now part of their SACS accreditation. But just to reaffirm that commitment, they said, we need to have our own night of service where we have different projects that students can participate in. It's been extremely successful, and that has become a yearly thing that we do. We also started offering a Hunger and Homelessness Week in November, as I'm sure you might do at your institutions. And so we started offering a lot of programming around hunger and homelessness, like the Oxfams Jesse just talked about, poverty simulations, films, and other things that happen throughout that week. We were able to now expand Rotaract clubs to all campuses, which was, you know, it can be difficult because every campus has its own unique culture and feel to it, but it worked, and we were very excited to be able to offer all of our students the ability to join that club with a dedicated staff person on their campus. We also started a program that didn't work out called our Faculty Liaison Program that year. So our thought behind that was, We are housed on the student services side and not the academic affairs side. So that means that it can be a little difficult for us to go in and work with faculty and really try to help them incorporate service into their course, because faculty love their academic freedom, and I get it, I understand that. So it's really a fine line that we've always walked about, well, we'll provide you with resources and with contacts who could help you, and we really see ourselves as this bridge builder, because faculty, plain and simple, do not want student services personnel telling them how to incorporate this into their class. And truly, they are the experts, so I understand that. So our thought was, we took some money from our budget, took it from other things, and because we felt this was important, we identified a faculty member on each campus that would work with the service learning coordinator, and that faculty member became the faculty liaison. And so their goal was to work with new faculty members on incorporating service learning into their syllabi and working on them to develop projects and to meet with community partners and to kind of bring them on board to the bigger things that we were doing. You know, it worked okay for that first year, but our faculty, as I'm sure yours are so incredibly busy, and teaching a minimum of 6 classes, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so they just didn't seem to have the time to dedicate to the program to really get it to where it needed to be. And we just felt that we couldn't continue to take the money out of our budget if it just wasn't working out that well. So it was something that we tried, something that didn't work out. We're always looking for different ways to make faculty leaders with service learning so that they can kind of be our voice and talk to their fellow colleagues about service learning and best practices.
One thing that we have done to do that is, so when opportunities from Campus Compact come up, like the PACE conference, we have invited not just people from our team, but we've invited faculty to attend those. So that's one way that we've kind of supplemented. Although the liaison program didn't work out, we're still trying other things to get our faculty connected.
One of the things that we did try with a faculty member was e-service learning. And so the thought process there is, and it's ironic in the environment that we're in, but we knew more and more of our students were taking online classes, and we really wanted faculty to be able to incorporate a service component into a strictly online course. But what does that look like? And so some faculty members were under the impression, no, my student has to physically go on site to do service. Others had talked about research-based service learning or indirect service learning versus direct. And so we really tried to help faculty understand that difference and how can you bring service learning into a virtual format. And so we did have one faculty member that was given a sabbatical for a semester for teaching her classes, and she worked on developing some really fantastic e-service learning for her online courses. And we got our 5-minute warning, so I'm going to speed up and not talk so much because I haven't even let you guys ask questions yet. So I'm going to keep going. In 2016 to 2018, we really knew that many of our students were suffering from food insecurities. Erin was part of my inspiration for this. I know that Durham Tech has a fantastic food pantry and a garden, and I was always just like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And we were able to do it. So we ended up working with Loaves and Fishes, who provides food to all of our neighbors in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County. And we became an emergency food pantry under their umbrella. All that means is that we're able to provide 2 days worth of food to a student and their entire family, and all items are non-perishable. We kept the process very simple. We just asked the student for their ID. We don't want to make any more obstacles for students than they might already have. We put free little libraries at one of our campuses. We wrote a grant for a 9/11 Day of Remembrance, and we're able to do service around that. That was a one-time thing. We also tried a program called Snacks and Facts. never took off, and that's okay. That was, again, one of those things that just didn't really work with the infrastructure. But the idea behind that was to invite community partners in to talk about their organizations while we're giving students snacks. The last one is called Mind Trekkers, and that's a STEM program we started partnering with. So our science students, service learning is required in all of our science courses. And so that's something that they're engaged in, and they conduct science experiments with elementary school children for one day. It's madhouse, it's crazy and chaotic, but it's super fun. 2018 to 2020, we are part of North Carolina Campus Compact's Food Lion Feeds. We started having students do presentations on their alternative spring break experience, sharing that with college leadership so that they could really get a full understanding of what our students are experiencing. We had our first alternative fall break trip, which was great. We had a really, really good turnout from students, and they were engaged and they were active, and it was really focused on civic engagement, and it was really good.
It was local, so we did everything right in the city of Charlotte.
We also partnered with CareRing, and so what we did there is we had, they offer over-the-counter medications for free. So our pharmacy tech students started volunteering at CareRing, and twice a month they would bring a box of over-the-counter medicines to our food pantry, and then we would disperse those to students. So they were able to pick up 3 different medications once a month. So that's something that has saved them a ton of money. We also started partnering with Basket Case Farms to deliver fresh produce to our food pantries so that students could have a salad, and we could offer things like that. I am so sorry. My computer keeps dinging, and I don't know if you can hear that. And then I'll let Jessie touch on the rest.
So based off of, Leslie has come to our campus to do training on deliberative dialogues, and for the PACE conference that we attended in February, we talked about different platforms for dialogues. We're kind of exploring the sustained dialogue model right now because it is something that we can do virtually. We have purchased a Zoom account, so we use WebEx as a college, but we purchased a Zoom account for our department, and it really has helped us. We are starting a sustained dialogue 5-part series about social justice that starts next week. And kind of moving forward, some of our goals are to hire full-time coordinators for each area campus. Equity is one of the college's values. And so we recognize that if we don't have a presence, it's hard for faculty to connect with us and our students to connect with us. We'd like to change the name of the department. So our department name is Service Learning right now, but that doesn't encompass everything that we do. We've talked about calling it the Office of Civic Engagement. Some of our other sister institutions and some of your institutions have a more encompassing name that that really kind of speaks to the work that you're doing. It's not just work in the classroom. We know it's both extracurricularly and curricularly. We just had a new Center for Teaching and Learning, or it's actually the Center for Teaching and Excellence, I think, or Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence. This would be a great way for us to organize our faculty resources so that we can, we can outreach to new faculty or maybe faculty that haven't incorporated service into their classes. And then also we need to sustain those relationships and keep it fresh and keep providing resources to current faculty with service learning components. And we want to establish a civic engagement empowerment curriculum for our students so that we can make them change makers. And so I think a lot of our students come to us and they don't know how to channel that passions that they have. And so we want to be able to connect them to people in the community so that they can, so that we can help them accomplish what they want to accomplish. I kind of sped through that last one because I know we're kind of over the 5-minute marker. There were some questions that I saw in the chat.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jessie and Dena, for kind of just lending us your expertise. We are now transitioning to the Q&A. Do you all have more slides?
No, that was the last one.
Okay,
I just kind of went through that one.
Perfect timing. You guys did it. Yes. Thank you again for being the opener of this year's CX virtual conference. The first question comes from a sister institution. Erin at Durham Tech asked, what do you think motivated your senior leadership to initially fund service learning at CPCC?
Erin, they really just wanted, I think it was the numbers. So we debated about whether we wanted to show you numbers to show growth every year. And, you know, numbers isn't something that really motivates me. I'm more excited about the things that our students get excited about, but that's what motivated our administration. So we were looking at, do students who participate in service learning courses versus non-service learning courses stay engaged? Are they retained at a higher rate from semester to semester? Are their GPAs higher? Do they make more A, Bs, and Cs than students who are in the same course that does not have a service learning component? We started looking at that data and it blew me away. By far, students in service learning courses were retained at a higher rate, made better grades at a higher rate, and they received their credentials at a higher rate than non-service learning students. And I think that is really what sealed the deal, because we started looking at that data early on, knowing that we had to get administration to keep buying into what we were doing.
That is great. And I'm glad that you all look at data, because sometimes senior management, you know, they really just focus on data. So I'm glad that you guys were able to use that to leverage funding for your center. All right, great. The next question is, how do you become a community partner?
All you have to do is call us. We set up a meeting with you. We go, we meet, we talk, we make sure that you are a good fit for us, meaning that you understand the nature of how service learning works and how our students are. You know, we go by semesters. It sometimes is not a whole, you know, year-round opportunity for students. And we just want to make sure that you're okay with that. We want you to understand that service learning is different than volunteering. So as long as we are feeling good about that and you feel like you have good opportunities for students, we're happy to partner with you.
Dena and Jesse, do you mind putting your email in the chat box?
Oh yeah, I don't mind at all.
Great. Well, that sounds really exciting. Yeah, and you know, it's really important, right, to have the first kind of setting the expectations for that relationship. Thank you for that. Also, I believe this is one of the last questions. Are you still offering grant writing sessions for partners?
So we rotate our community partner topics. So typically at the end of a year, we send out a survey to our community partners. And one of the questions that we ask them is, you know, what type of sessions would you like to hear from next, the following year? And so that's typically where we get that. We get that one a lot, so we do that one a lot. Assessment is a huge one as well. And so we've had someone from the college talk about leading an assessment project for their agency. And sometimes we just kind of choose. We know that based off of, it's sometimes hard to keep in contact with your community partners because there's such high turnover. Sometimes we choose the topics based off of things that we think might interest them or be good for them. Like this past year, we have an amazing family resource center who's staffed by, she's a counselor as well. And she did a great wellness and taking care of yourself presentation. And that, you know, we talked about the burnout in community partners and always putting other people first and not taking care of yourself. So yes, we still do the grant one, and that one typically shows up a lot. But there are some other new ones, and just depending on what's going on in society, I think supporting people virtually might be a topic that they ask us to present on in the future. but they kind of range all over the place.
Correct.
And we keep those on. So if you're interested in just what that presentation looks like, I have what the presenter has shared with the group. I could also share that with people if they just want to email me.
That is awesome, Jessie. Thank you. All right, we have 3 minutes and 2 more questions. So we're going to try to answer like maybe just 1 minute answer.
Okay.
What have you had? Oh, this is a good question. Have you had students who refuse to do the reflection component or choose not to participate because they do not want to do it?
So yes. Yeah. So it's up to the instructor on whether they want to require service learning in their course or make it optional. So if it's optional, of course, the student cannot do it. If it is required, what we've come up with is either a research-based or an indirect option, which means it's something that the student can do to benefit the organization where they don't have to physically go on site. The reflection components, if they don't want to do it, they still have to do it, because if they finished that, they're being graded on connecting the course material to what they did for service. So there's no option there. They will balk about doing the service at times, but if we can come up with that direct or research-based option for them, it sometimes makes it a little bit less painful for them.
All righty. Wow, this is great. We're getting somewhere, and we're about finishing here. But one more. This is a good question too. This is great questions, y'all. Thank you, and I hope that if you continue more workshops in the SEAC, please do continue sending them. This is great conversation. What motivates faculty to actually utilize service learning in their courses? Is it the rank, interest, administration priorities?
It's really intrinsic. The Vice President of Academic Affairs, who was here prior, he did not, honestly, he didn't support it. We do have a new VP who is very excited about service learning. She does support it. So I do think, and she just started a couple months ago. So I do think we have more opportunities because, Erin, to be honest, we're struggling right now with recruiting faculty. We've had some turnover. People have retired or moved to another college, and it can be hard because it's more work for them to do. So that is something that we're honestly struggling with a little bit right now.
All right, the bingo question. How many community partners do you serve?
I mean, that question, it just depends, you know, because we're in our database, we probably have about 75 community partners. But sometimes, like I said earlier, if there's transition, I feel like we're constantly trying to keep that current. And that is something that if anybody else has suggestions on how you kind of make, you know, sometimes directors or people that leave, coordinators who leave might say, I'm leaving this position. Oftentimes they're going to another community agency that's opened up new doors for us for a new community partner. But sometimes they don't send us, hey, here's who the person who's taking over for us. But right now we have about 70 to 75.
Great. Thank you, Jessie, Dena, so much for sharing with us today. We really appreciate you. Thank you for opening SEAC 2020. I just want to highlight really quickly to everyone that the next session starts at 11:15. Feel free to take care of yourself. We'll hopefully see you in the next session. And also, please do not forget to tweet, to post on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you use, using the hashtag NC Engage Campus. NC for North Carolina, Engage Campus. That is the official hashtag for the whole state. So NC Engage Campus, that is the network's hashtag. Thank you so much again, and we look forward to seeing you throughout the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.